Dark clouds loomed ominously over the Clayton County Superior Court, their brooding presence a fitting backdrop for the storm about to erupt inside its stately halls. Tension crackled through the marble corridors like an electric current, waiting for the inevitable discharge. On that rainy Georgia morning, as unsuspecting bystanders filed through the grand glass entrance, few could have predicted the drama poised to unfold inside Courtroom 3B, a confrontation that would ripple far beyond those walls and shake the pillars of justice to their core. At the defense table, a poised young black woman took her seat. Her charcoal gray suit was immaculate, her posture composed, and her gaze unwavering. To any observer, she appeared like any other defendant awaiting her fate. But appearances can be deceiving. The woman sitting there was no ordinary citizen. In fact, she held one of the most powerful legal positions in the state. What was about to transpire would expose a hidden bias and ignite a scandal destined to reverberate through every corner of Georgia's legal system. Her name was Danielle Warren, and she was Governor Charles Whitmore's chief legal counsel. A roadside encounter gone wrong. Just 72 hours earlier, Danielle was leaving the state capitol building in downtown Atlanta. She'd stayed late, finalizing a draft proposal on criminal justice reform that would mandate accountability and transparency across the state's law enforcement agencies and courts. For Danielle, this wasn't just legislative work, it was personal. She'd dedicated her career to fighting systemic bias, drawing from years of witnessing injustice decimate black communities. The roads were slick as Danielle maneuvered her sleek sedan toward her suburban townhouse in Riverdale. Her leather briefcase sat on the passenger seat, stuffed with reports and policy drafts. She barely noticed the patrol car trailing her until its flashing blue lights flooded her rearview mirror. Danielle's heart pounded as she signaled and pulled onto the shoulder. Her mind raced. She wasn't speeding. Her registration was up to date. She hadn't touched a drop of alcohol, but experience told her none of that guaranteed safety when it came to traffic stops, especially for black drivers in Georgia. The officer approached her window, a stocky white man with a square jaw and buzz-blonde hair. His badge read Sergeant Marcus Doyle. His narrowed eyes flicked over her car with suspicion as Danielle rolled down the window. "Good evening, officer," Danielle greeted him with practiced calm, already holding out her driver's license and insurance. Sergeant Doyle didn't take them right away. Instead, he fired off questions. Where was she coming from? Where was she going? Why was she out so late? Danielle answered each one with quiet authority, mentioning her role in the governor's office. His skepticism deepened. Governor's office, he muttered, as though the idea was preposterous. And then, as if remembering something from a script, he sniffed theatrically and announced, "I smell alcohol." Danielle blinked in disbelief. "I haven't been drinking," she replied evenly. Doyle's expression hardened. "Step out of the vehicle," he ordered. "Officer, I know my rights," Danielle began, "and I respectfully decline a search of my car unless you have probable cause." That was enough to set him off. Within moments, Doyle yanked open her door, ordered her to stand by the roadside, and began rifling through her vehicle. He dumped her papers on the seat, pawing through confidential legal documents as rain drizzled onto the upholstery. Danielle kept her arms crossed tightly, her pulse thundering in her ears. She refused to invoke her political connections, convinced the truth would prevail if she followed the law. But when Doyle found nothing, his frustration boiled over. He accused her of interfering with an investigation and slapped cold steel cuffs on her wrists. He read her rights in a flat monotone, ignoring Danielle's stunned protest that she had broken no laws. By sunrise, Danielle found herself fingerprinted, photographed, and locked in a holding cell. Her requests to call her attorney were delayed. She spent the night sitting on a metal bench, staring at graffiti-scrawled walls, steeling herself for a legal fight she had never imagined would be personal. The gavel falls hard. Danielle appeared before Judge Terrence Caldwell the following afternoon. Appointed years ago, Caldwell had a reputation that divided the legal community. Some hailed him as a no-nonsense arbiter of the law. Others whispered about his heavy-handed rulings, his harsh sentences disproportionately impacting black and brown defendants. Danielle had seen Caldwell in action from the gallery. She noted his curt dismissals when defense attorneys raised concerns of bias, his patronizing tone with defendants of color. But she never thought she'd stand before him. With no attorney by her side, convinced the flimsy charges would collapse immediately, Danielle approached the podium in courtroom 3B. Judge Caldwell's icy gaze locked onto her as he read aloud the charges: obstruction of a law enforcement officer and interference with an investigation. "Do you have counsel, Miss Warren?" he asked, his tone clipped. "Your Honor, Yes or no?" "No, Your Honor. I haven't had the opportunity to contact counsel yet." "I suggest you do so," Caldwell said, his lips twitching in what might have been amusement. "This court does not look favorably on self-representation." Danielle swallowed her instinct to remind him she was herself an attorney. Instead, she asked for a continuance to secure legal representation. Caldwell granted the continuance, but then moved swiftly to address bail. He set it at $15,000, a staggering amount for a first-time charge of resisting investigation, with no evidence of violence. Danielle fought the lump rising in her throat. This wasn't justice. This was a message. As the bailiff led her away, courthouse staff whispered in hushed tones. Danielle Warren, the governor's legal counsel, was now a defendant in Judge Caldwell's courtroom. Mobilizing allies, Danielle posted bail by evening and wasted no time contacting two key allies: Marissa Trent, a civil rights attorney renowned for her victories against police misconduct, and Jason Liu, Governor Whitmore's deputy chief of staff. They met in a quiet back room at a local cafe. Marissa was fierce, sharp-eyed, and already compiling a legal strategy before Danielle finished recounting her arrest. Jason, ever the political tactician, warned of the optics but assured Danielle that the governor stood firmly behind her. "We're going to need evidence," Marissa said, scribbling in a notebook. "Dashcam, body cam footage, if they even exist." "They said it was lost," Danielle replied bitterly. "Convenient," Marissa muttered. "But we'll subpoena every backup they've got. And we're going to challenge Judge Caldwell's bail ruling. It reeks of bias." Jason nodded. "And we'll prepare for the political fallout. If this goes public, it has to be on your terms." Danielle felt her resolve harden. She was ready for the fight of her life. An uneven playing field. Over the next several days, Marissa filed motions demanding the release of any video evidence. Jason worked back channels to assess Caldwell's vulnerabilities. Meanwhile, Danielle met with Governor Whitmore in his office atop the Capitol building. The governor's expression was somber. "I'm furious this happened," he said bluntly. "And not just because it's you, Danielle. This is what we're fighting to change." Danielle detailed the excessive bail and Caldwell's dismissive behavior. Whitmore shook his head. "Caldwell's been clever about skating the line. But if we can prove bias, we can expose the entire corrupt pipeline," Danielle finished. Whitmore smiled faintly. "Exactly. A crack in the wall." Marissa's legal team uncovered troubling details. Sergeant Doyle had a record of excessive force complaints and multiple incidents where body cam footage mysteriously disappeared. But without hard proof, they couldn't discredit him fully. Then came a break. A witness had filmed the arrest on her phone. Leah Ramirez, a nurse, had been driving by when she saw the stop. Concerned, she'd recorded part of the encounter. Her video showed Danielle calm, cooperative, and visibly confused as Doyle berated her. It wasn't the entire arrest, but it was enough to raise serious doubts. Marissa presented the footage at the preliminary hearing. Caldwell, annoyed, ruled it inconclusive but allowed the case to proceed to trial. Still, the tide was shifting. The unraveling. Danielle's team pressed harder. They found other defendants arrested by Doyle and sentenced harshly by Caldwell. Patterns emerged: lost footage, inflated charges, excessive bail. Marissa compiled affidavits. Jason fed the findings to journalists. Then, a private investigator unearthed partial dashcam footage from Doyle's cruiser. Though corrupted, the remaining video and audio corroborated Danielle's story. No erratic driving, no refusal to comply, no sign of intoxication. Doyle had fabricated it all. 2 forensic experts authenticated the video. The reckoning. At the next hearing, Marissa presented the dash cam footage. Caldwell's stoic mask cracked as the video played before a packed courtroom. Doyle's lies were laid bare. The prosecutor conceded they lacked grounds to proceed. Caldwell, with a clenched jaw, dismissed the charges. But Marissa wasn't finished. She filed formal complaints with the Judicial Qualifications Commission, citing Caldwell's bias and misconduct. Public pressure mounted. Media stories detailed Doyle's misconduct and Caldwell's rulings. More victims came forward. Faced with an ethics probe, Caldwell resigned in disgrace. Doyle was suspended, then fired, and faced federal investigation. A new chapter. Danielle stood with Governor Whitmore as he signed sweeping reform legislation into law months later. Her ordeal had galvanized the movement for change. "It's not just about me," Danielle said at the press conference. "It's about everyone who's been silenced. Today we speak for them." Her victory was more than personal redemption. It was a rallying cry for justice, proof that courage and truth could dismantle even the most entrenched corruption. Final thoughts. If Danielle's story inspired you, we invite you to stand with us in the fight for justice. Share this story, subscribe for more tales of courage, and never stop believing in the power of truth to bring about change. Thank you for being part of our community. Together, we shine a light where others prefer darkness.